There's a fundamental mental error that 99% of people make every single day, and this error keeps them trapped in infinite cycles of suffering, anxiety, and frustration. Eckhart Tolle discovered this error after decades studying the human mind. And when you discover what it is, you'll understand why your life feels stuck, why you keep returning to the same problems, why nothing you try seems to truly work. The error is so subtle, you don't even realize you're making it. It's so automatic, it seems natural, so common, that everyone around you is doing it too. But when you finally see this error clearly, the liberation is instantaneous. You know that feeling of being stuck, right? Like you're running on a treadmill that never gets you anywhere. You strive, you struggle, you try everything, but you always end up back in the same place. The same fears, the same worries, and the same self-sabotaging patterns. Have you noticed that you solve one problem and another immediately pops up in its place? That you achieve something you desperately wanted and then feel empty again soon after? That you move to a new city, change jobs, end a relationship, but bring the same problems with you? This happens because you're making this fundamental error. And until you discover what it is, you'll remain trapped in the same cycle, no matter what you do externally. But what if I told you there's a way to break this cycle forever? That there's a simple insight that can free you from decades of mental conditioning? That you can escape the psychological prison you live in without even realizing it? Steve Jobs knew this error. That's why he could create revolutionary product, while others remained stuck in conventional thinking. Oprah Winfrey knows this error. That's why she transformed deep trauma into transformative wisdom. Eckhart Tolle doesn't just know this error, he teaches how to never make it again. And today, you're going to discover exactly what this error is that's keeping you blocked. More importantly, you're going to learn how to overcome it definitively. But before I reveal the error, I need to show you how it operates in your life, because recognizing its symptoms is the first step towards healing. The error manifests in various ways. Perhaps you'll recognize some of them. You live in the future, always thinking, when I achieve this, then I'll be happy. Or you live in the past, always thinking, if I had done things differently, everything would be better. You believe your happiness depends on external circumstances. You think you need to change other people to feel good. You feel like something is always missing for your life to be complete. You constantly fight against reality. This shouldn't be happening. They should understand me. Life should be easier. You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, as if you were responsible for controlling everything. You identify with your thoughts and emotions. I am anxious. I am depressed. I am a worried person. Do you recognize some of these patterns? They are all symptoms of the same fundamental error. An error so basic that most people don't even suspect it exists. An error you probably learned in childhood and never questioned. But here's the good news. This error is not part of who you are. It's just a mental habit. And like any habit, it can be changed, not through willpower or positive thinking, but through the clear perception of truth. Tolle spent years suffering from severe depression before discovering this error. He tried everything: therapy, medication, philosophy, religion. Nothing worked because he didn't know what the real problem was, until one night, at the brink of despair, he had the insight that changed everything. He realized there were two selves inside him: the self that suffered and the self that observed the suffering. And he asked a revolutionary question: if I can observe my suffering, then who am I really? This simple question revealed the fundamental error. And when he saw the error with absolute clarity, the unnecessary suffering simply vanished. Not because he solved all his external problems, but because he stopped making the error that created the suffering. The error is this: You believe you are the voice in your head. Seems too simple? Let that sink in for a moment. How many hours a day do you spend listening to that mental voice? That voice that comments on everything, judges everything, worries about everything. That voice that never stops, that always has something to say about every situation. Most people live completely identified with this voice. They think this voice is them. When the voice says, "I am a failure," they believe it. When the voice says, "Everyone judges me," they suffer. When the voice creates catastrophic scenarios about the future, they become anxious. But here's the truth that will set you free. You are not that voice. You are the one who listens to the voice. You are the one who is aware of the thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. You are the space where thoughts appear and disappear, not the temporary content that passes through that space. This simple insight changes everything, because the moment you realize you are not your thoughts, you are freed from the power they had over you. You stop being a victim of your own mind and assume the role of a conscious observer. But there's a specific reason why this error is so difficult to perceive, and when you understand this reason, you'll understand why you've been trapped for so long. The error is invisible because it's all you know. It's like asking a fish what water is. It will never be able to answer because it has always lived inside it. You've always lived identified with the mental voice. So it seems natural, normal, inevitable. Since childhood, you've been taught to pay attention to your thoughts. What are you thinking? Use your head. Think before you act. No one ever taught you that you can observe thoughts without identifying with them. No one told you that there is a fundamental difference between thinking and being aware of thought. Traditional education reinforces this error. Modern society reinforces this error. Social media reinforces this error. You are constantly encouraged to identify with mental content. Your opinions, your beliefs, your worries, your fears, and the more you identify with mental content, the more trapped you become. Because mental content is always problematic. The mind always finds something to worry about, something to criticize, something to resist. It's its nature. Tolle discovered that the mind is like a sense organ. Just as the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind thinks. You don't identify with what your eyes see, do you? You don't say, "I am that tree I am seeing." So why identify with what your mind thinks? When you understand that thoughts are merely objects in consciousness, like any other object, you break free from the mental prison. You can have thoughts without being dominated by them. You can observe emotions without being swept away by them. You can witness all mental activity without losing your inner peace. But there's something even deeper that needs to be understood. Something about the nature of psychological time that keeps you trapped. This fundamental error feeds on psychological time. Your mind is constantly dragging you to the past or the future. You should have done differently. Past. What if this goes wrong? Future. It rarely leaves you in the present, because in the present it has no problems to solve. In this present moment, right now. Do you have any real problems? Not something that could happen. Not something that already happened, but something happening now? Most of the time the answer is no. The present is naturally peaceful, but the mind can't survive in the present. It needs drama, problems, stories to exist. That's why it constantly drags you into psychological time, where there's always something to worry about. Steve Jobs understood this profoundly. His best ideas came when he stopped thinking and simply remained present. He didn't force solutions. He created space for solutions to emerge naturally from pure intelligence. Not from the problematic mind. Liberation comes when you realize you can choose where to place your attention. You can feed the mental voice with your attention, or you can withdraw your attention from it and rest in pure presence. It's like changing channels on TV. You have the remote, but the mind will resist this change. It will say it's dangerous, that you need it to survive, that stopping thinking is irresponsible. When that happens, remember, that's the voice trying to keep you trapped. That's precisely the trap you're learning to recognize. The first step to liberation is simple. Start observing the mental voice as if it were a radio playing in the background. Don't try to silence it. Don't fight it. Just observe. Look, the mind is worrying again. Interesting, now it's judging. Now it's creating dramatic scenarios. This detached observation already breaks the identification. You begin to see the mind as something you have, not something you've been, like an organ that produces thoughts, not your true identity. And when you truly see this with clarity, when this perception becomes stable, the fundamental error loses all power over you. You break free from the mental prison you didn't even know existed. You discover a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. You find a freedom that was always yours, but was obscured by the error. But there's a specific technique that Eckhart Tolle teaches to accelerate this process of liberation. A simple question that can break mental identification instantly. The technique is a simple question that completely disarms the mental error. Who is aware of this thought? When you ask this question sincerely, something extraordinary happens. You immediately step out of identification with the thought and enter the position of conscious observer. It's like waking up from a dream. Suddenly you realize you were dreaming and that you are much bigger than any dream. Let's practice right now. Think of something that worries you. Anything, work, relationships, money. Feel the anxiety arise. Now ask, who is aware of this worry? And observe what happens. Did you feel that pause, that space that opened up? In those few seconds, you were no longer the worried person. You were the consciousness observing the worry. And in that consciousness, there's a natural peace that no circumstance can touch. That is your true identity. Not the person with problems who needs to solve everything. Not the agitated mind that always finds something to worry about. But the serene consciousness that witnesses everything with unshakable peace. Tolle discovered that this consciousness never has problems. It simply observes problems appearing and disappearing on its surface, like waves in the ocean. The ocean is not disturbed by the waves. It remains deep, calm, unchanged, but the mind will try to regain control. It will say, "This is escapism. You have real responsibilities. Stop doing this mystical nonsense." When that happens, ask again, who is thinking this? And you return to freedom. Steve Jobs used a variation of this technique in important meetings. When he felt tension or conflict arising, he internally asked himself, who is reacting now? This took him out of the emotional drama and put him in a state of total clarity. From that clarity, he could ask simple questions that completely changed the course of the conversation. Science confirms what Tolle teaches. When you disidentify from thoughts, the prefrontal cortex activates, the area of the brain responsible for wisdom and broad perspective. Simultaneously, the amygdala calms down, the center of fear and reactivity. You literally change your brain neurochemistry. It's like switching from a car you're not controlling to a car you're consciously driving, from autopilot to conscious control. And in that control, you have real power over your life experience. But there's a subtle trap that 90% of people fall into when they learn this. And I need to warn you so you don't make the same mistake. Some people use this technique to escape emotions. Oh, that's just a thought. I don't need to feel it. This is what psychologists call spiritual bypassing, using spiritual concepts to avoid the necessary emotional work. True freedom is not the absence of emotions. It's freedom within emotions. You feel everything fully, but you don't. Identify with anything, like an actor who plays a role with total involvement, but never forgets that he's an actor. When sadness arises, you allow it to be there, but instead of saying, "I am sad," you recognize sadness is present in consciousness. You embrace the emotion without becoming it, like a loving parent comforting a child. You don't deny the child's crying, but you don't despair along with them. This is the difference between resistance and acceptance. Resistance is fighting against what is already here. Acceptance is embracing what is present without identifying with it. And in acceptance, a natural space arises where healing can happen. Oprah Winfrey says it was this understanding that freed her from decades of trauma. She stopped identifying as a traumatized person and began to recognize herself as consciousness in which traumas appeared and were healed. This shift in perspective transformed her pain into wisdom. Jim Carrey had an even more radical experience. During a deep depression, he found himself obsessively asking, "Who is depressed? Who is Jim Carrey?" And suddenly he realized he couldn't find this someone. There was only pure awareness observing temporary experiences. This is the most revolutionary discovery you can make. When you really search for that self you think you are, you can't find it. There's only perception happening. Consciousness being conscious of itself, but the ego will try to turn this into just another mental concept. It will say, "I understand, I am consciousness." When that happens, ask, "Who understood?" And you return to direct experience. Beyond all concepts, the practice is simple, but it needs to be consistent. Every time you feel trapped in any mental pattern, worry, anger, sadness, fear, use the liberating question, "Who is aware of this?" Don't look for an intellectual answer. Look for the direct experience of being the one who is aware. Look for the silent space from where the question arises and to where the answer returns. Over time, something extraordinary happens. You develop what mystics call the impartial witness, a part of you that observes everything without getting dramatically involved, like the sky that remains unchanged while the clouds pass. This witness never suffers unnecessarily. It's never anxious. It's never depressed. It can witness anxiety, it can observe sadness, but it itself remains at peace. And the more you recognize it, the more you become it. But there's something even deeper that happens when you stop, making the fundamental error, something that will change not only how you feel, but how you function in the world. When you stop identifying with the mental voice, your natural intelligence emerges. An intelligence that doesn't need to compulsively think to function, a wisdom that knows without processing, a creativity that flows effortlessly. Steve Jobs accessed this intelligence to create revolutionary products. He didn't force innovation through intense mental brainstorming. He created silent space where genuine insights could emerge naturally. That's why Apple products have that effortless elegance. They come from a place beyond the calculating mind. Einstein also knew this state. He said his greatest discoveries came not from logical thinking, but from moments of intuitive insight. The famous equation E=mc2 wasn't the result of complex calculations, but of a sudden perception that emerged from mental silence. You also have access to this intelligence. It's not the privilege of geniuses, it's your natural capacity. When you stop interfering with compulsive mental activity, when you get out of the way of your own wisdom, how many times have you had the perfect solution to a problem when you stopped thinking about it? How many times did the answer appear naturally when you were relaxed, showering, walking? That's your natural intelligence functioning when the mind stops interfering. The fundamental error blocks this intelligence because you get trapped in mental loops. The mind loves to chew on problems endlessly, even when there's nothing new to discover. It's like a jammed machine repeating the same useless movement. When you free yourself from the error, you access what Tolle calls the intelligence of the present, a way of knowing that doesn't depend on memory or projection, but on the direct perception of what is needed now. This intelligence solves problems elegantly and efficiently. It doesn't create complicated solutions. It finds the simplest and most natural path, like water that always finds the easiest way to flow. But there's an even deeper transformation that happens, a shift in your very identity that affects every aspect of your life. When you stop identifying with the mental voice, you stop identifying with the story that this voice tells about you. I am an anxious person. I always fail. I'm not good enough. I am a victim of circumstances. These are all just stories the mind tells. They are not the truth about who you are. The truth is that you are the consciousness in which these stories appear and disappear. And consciousness has no limitations, no problematic history, no fixed identity. This means you can consciously choose how to identify. Instead of seeing yourself as someone with problems, you can recognize yourself as consciousness temporarily, experiencing challenges. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim, you can recognize yourself as a conscious creator of your experience. This shift in identity completely transforms how you operate in the world. You stop seeking external validation because you recognize your intrinsic worth. You stop trying to control others because you understand that you can only control your own response. You stop running away from difficult situations because you know you can remain at peace regardless of the circumstances. Nelson Mandela exemplified this freedom. Even imprisoned for 27 years, he didn't identify as a prisoner. He recognized himself as free consciousness temporarily in a confined body. That's why he emerged from prison without bitterness, able to forgive and lead a national transformation. You have the same capacity. No matter what your past experiences have been, what your current circumstances are, what limitations you believe you have, all of this is temporary content in consciousness. You are the eternal consciousness in which everything appears. When you truly understand this, when this perception becomes stable, the fundamental error completely loses its power over you. You are freed from the mental prison you didn't even know existed. You discover a freedom that was always yours, but was obscured by misidentification. So, the next time you feel blocked, remember, you are not trapped in circumstances. You are trapped in the identification with thoughts about circumstances, and this identification can be broken instantly with a simple question. Who is aware of this? Use this question as a master key that unlocks all mental prisons. Each time you use it sincerely, you free yourself a little more. Each time you question identification with thoughts, you awaken to your true nature. The mental error that kept you blocked was simple. You believed you were the voice in your head. The liberation is also simple, recognizing that you are the one who hears the voice. You are pure consciousness, free, unlimited, always at peace. This perception is not just a concept to understand. It's a reality to live. It's your true identity to embody. It's the freedom that has always been yours to claim. If this revelation touched something real in you, it's because your true nature is recognizing itself. Share this liberation with someone else trapped in that fundamental error, because shared freedom is freedom multiplied. Think about it. The weight you've carried, the invisible chains, they're starting to loosen. The error that kept you locked is now visible. The path out is clear. Liberty is yours. Use it. Embrace it. Don't let the fear of the unknown hold you back any longer. Eckhart Tolle's wisdom, it's not just about understanding, it's about action, about actively choosing freedom every single day. It's about recognizing the patterns, the self-defeating narratives you've internalized, and consciously choosing to rewrite them, to create a new story, a story filled with hope, with possibility, with the joy of real, authentic living. This is not just intellectual knowledge, it is a transformation, a deep inner shift that unlocks a whole new level of being, a level where peace and serenity aren't fleeting moments, but the very foundation of your existence. Let go of the burdens, the regrets, the anxieties. They don't serve you anymore. They are chains forged in the darkness of misunderstanding. Break free from them. Step into the light. Eckhart Tolle offers a pathway, a practical, tangible approach, not just a philosophy, but a guide to transform your life. A guide to find your true self, your authentic power, and to unlock your potential. Don't just listen to these words, live them. Incorporate this newfound freedom into your relationships, into your work, into every aspect of your life, and watch the ripple effect, the positive change that unfolds as you share this gift of liberation with others. Remember, the journey isn't always easy, but the destination, the freedom on the other side, is worth it. It's worth every challenge, every struggle, every moment of self-reflection. So take a breath, feel the lightness, feel the joy, and step boldly, confidently into this new chapter of your life, guided by Eckhart Tolle's profound teachings and the power of your own liberated self.